Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Now today we're going to be talking about practice and more specifically how I approach my practice. Well, before you jump into a session, you need to ask yourself, what's the reason for that practice? Do you want to learn a particular track? Do you want to get faster, or do you want to practice your racecraft? Well, when I jump into a practice session, I'm trying to practice all three, and you've got to practice like you mean it, otherwise don't bother. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to cover are iRacing specific, because there's a couple of things you can do in iRacing that you can't do in any other simulators. But the core principles of what we're going to talk about are the same in any other simulator. So firstly, I decide what race I want to do and what race I want to practice for. So when I've decided what race I want to do, I jump onto the iRacing UI. And if I wanted to do the Porsche Cup race, I find the Porsche Cup series. So let me have a look for it. You can never find it when you want to see it. I don't know what this hand's doing. All about continuity. So we've got the Porsche Cup fixed. So if I wanted to practice for this race, I would click on series results first of all, and then I would have a look and see what the times are for the split I would be in. So I would be in the top split on the last race. If I click on results, and then I can have a look at the lap times. So the average lap times and the fastest lap times. Now the best lap is usually a lap with draft or they've been pushed. So for a lap for me without draft, I would probably add 3/10 onto a lap when I had draft. So you could probably add about 3 or 4 tenths onto these lap times here. The average lap time are 1:21.6. Now you've got to ask yourself, where would I put myself in this race? And you know what kind of lap times to aim for. That would be the first thing that I would do, just to give myself a benchmark going into the practice session. And from here, if I wasn't that comfortable with the racetrack, I would actually click at the bottom where it says go racing, and I would click test drive. So I would just drive on my own with nobody else there, no pressure, nobody can see what lap times that you're putting in. But clicking test drive from the official race series will give you the exact weather for the race session. So when you've done that, jump in to the practice session that you want to join. Now, if you've joined a practice session that's been going on for quite some time, there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. And one of them is to not chase the unachievable lap time. Now, iRacing has dynamic weather, dynamic track, and that can change considerably throughout a 2-hour practice session. So if you've joined the practice session an hour after it started, well, the times at the start of the session are more than likely going to be quicker, especially if it's a day practice session, because the track will warm up. Sun rises, air temperature increases along with the track temp, and you can have a huge gap between the starting track temp and the end track temp. It can go up 10, 15 degrees. And I don't care how fast you are or what setup you've got, you're not going to be able to match the lap times that are set at the start of the session when the track temp is cool. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're comparing yourself to drivers with a similar I rating to you, was their lap time set on race fuel, or was it a qualifying lap? Because the qualifying setup in the Porsche Cup Series, for example, is probably worth around 4 or 5 tenths. Less fuel, less weight, the car accelerates and stops quicker. So a good way to check is have a look at the lap times of the driver in the session. If there are more than 2 laps, you know that they are on race fuel, because you can only get 2 official laps on a qualifying set in a fixed series. If you see gaps and then 2 laps, gaps and then 2 laps, well, the chances are that they are running a qualifying set. So just bear that in mind. If you're on race fuel, well, you're not really going to get anywhere near those times if those drivers are a similar skill level to you. But there can be quite a number of variables. They could be setting those lap times when they've got draft and you couldn't see it. Another thing I would suggest that you do if you're struggling in a practice session is go on board with the faster drivers. I know you can't see their inputs, their brake, their accelerator, but you can see the line that they're taking. You can see how much curb they're taking. You can see what gear they're in. And sometimes that's all you need to go that 2 or 3 tenths quicker. Now, you've done all the hard work. and you're getting there out on track. And there are a couple of general rules that I set myself. Firstly, if I'm on an outlap, I will always move without exception for a car coming past. Or if somebody's behind me and I mess up my lap, well, I'll let them by then just so I don't ruin theirs. But if I'm at race pace, I'm not moving for anybody. And nor would I expect anybody to move for me. In fact, I want the exact opposite. The whole point of practicing for me is practicing what I might be doing during the race. So if I'm stuck behind somebody in a practice session and I can't get by, well, I need to try and come up with a strategy, because that's exactly what I would have to do during the race. So don't get frustrated when you're behind somebody who's obviously slower than you are. Don't expect them to move out the way. Just think, this is an opportunity for me to practice my racecraft, me to practice an overtake. Same if there's a guy behind you that's faster. Don't just move out the way. Use it to practice your defense. See what works, because you don't get to practice that during the race. If it goes wrong, your race is over. Do it in practice. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you know not to do it in the race. If you're a faster guy, use it to try and set up an overtake, see what works. If you're a slower guy, use it to defend. Don't get frustrated. Now, another thing I would recommend on iRacing is using the active reset. If there's a particular corner that you can't get right, use the active reset. Just map a button and you can practice the same braking zone, the same corner over and over and over again with exactly the same conditions. Really easy to do. Just set up a couple of buttons to mark a custom sector and an active reset point, and away you go. But you've got to practice like you mean it. Don't go in there just hot lapping, because you're not really gaining anything. Yes, we need to be consistent. Yes, we need to find the pace, but we need to know when we try something during the race, it's going to work in our favor. I know there's some things that happen during the race that you just can't practice for, but at least you're going to give yourself half a chance. So that's how I approach my practice sessions. Let me know down below in the comments how you practice for yours. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great week. See you later. Cheers.